we talked about COVID, and I mean, Japanese games at least got delayed during COVID. And being a producer, I'm sure you have opinions about game delays. What's your overall opinions on game delays? Like, have you ever had to delay a game, and what was that like? And how do you think studios can do better to not have to delay games? Or is it something you're okay with? Like, what do you think? Like, you talked about how you are responsible for setting deadlines, meeting deadlines, stuff like that.
I think delay is usually a consequence of poor planning. I think that it's also the right call in the majority of times. It's unfortunate that delays are given sometimes smoke and mirrors for the reasoning, like calling out COVID. Like, that could be a smoke and mirrors delay for any number of titles. But it could also actually be the reality. Like, any Japanese studio is just like, yeah, we weren't set up to work from home. It is COVID. But it's usually the right call. There's a Miyamoto quote, like, it's something along the lines of, like, a late game can be good, an early game is forever bad.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
exactly. And so delays make sense for me. I think that I actually do appreciate Blizzard's historical position of soon, of not committing to a time frame, because that disappointment is palpable. It does have a business impact. I think that delays happen when teams aren't fully honest with themselves or with each other. To me, there's a severe lack of candid communication about what the problems are, or leadership chooses to ignore it. I've certainly experienced some of those things, and it's different every time. There is a different reason, and usually an understandable reason, why a delay has to happen. Problem is most studios don't learn from that. And I like, GDC is so valuable for that reason, and you get developers able to share their stories one-on-one with each other and be able to say, God, I had this problem and I learned from it. Most studios probably don't take enough opportunity to learn from their mistakes. They're usually too focused on, okay, we did this thing, it sucked, on to the next thing, and we'll try and fix it along the way. We'll say
sort of, yeah.
But it's usually not a full commitment. And sometimes there's a like a team rebellion, being like, no, we're not going to do this until X, Y, and Z conditions are met.
So actually, I was curious about that. Like, have you ever been in a situation where, like, maybe the team is like, we need to delay this shit. Like, we need more time. Like, this isn't going to happen within the deadline. And then it's communicated. And two things. One is you don't get the delay. Like, have you had that before happen? Or, like, it's like what you just said, upper management's not listening to the teams. And then two, or the other route is you get the delay. Like, what does that feel like when, maybe from the boots on the ground, like you said, are communicating, we need more time, then you get time. My guess would be it's like a big sigh of relief. It increases trust in the leadership. Like, how does that work?
It's definitely been like, when the team requests that extension and they explain why and they can prove why it's meaningful, and when you get that back, it's like the chief staff believing in their team, like validating what they're saying because they are that much closer to things than you. When senior leadership doesn't listen, it depends on the communication that comes through, because maybe they say, look, we hear your concerns, but for X, Y, and Z values, these were the goals of this release. These were the goals of this update. This feature that you're worried about doesn't play into a critical margin. And so we're going to push forward. The teams that communicate the best and the most often and about the reason usually don't have delays. because those delays
Right. Sure.
weren't announced, or like the team is the only one who's aware of them, and you work towards those dates. But when there's a public date and the team goes, we got a delay, and the leadership goes, nope, whatever, like that usually causes
Attrition.
attrition for sure. It causes a lot of spin up conversations. It causes things that will last culturally for months,
Right.
sometimes years. And so that can become a sticky situation when it's a repeated problem, and that you're never actually able to catch up to what the employees are expecting. Because this is by no means like, this might even just highlight how difficult it is to be a CEO or one of those chief deciders, of just being able to say, I hear you, but we still have to do this. That person individually has to wear that responsibility.
Right.
Yeah, we've always said it would be crazy to be in the room where, like, those decisions were made. Like for Cyberpunk, for example, I imagine there were some crazy stuff happened. I can't even imagine.
I would not want to be in that room like that.
I mean, as a passive listener with no stake in the game, I mean,
yeah, it would have been interesting, and you're absolutely right. That would have been a conversation for the decade. But like that should have been recorded, and that should be a GDC conversation.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
What's the Star Trek simulation where there is no possible outcome? Something Maru.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, and also I see some Master Amos in chat saying how recent Minecraft delay means that the leadership was lacking at Mojang, and I know he's joking, but just to say what the situation you just explained really highlights that it's complicated, right? Because if the team is not, as you said, reporting candidly where the status of things are at, then the people making the decisions on deadlines and about whether things can be hit, they don't have good information to work off of.
By the time the team's reporting that it's going to be late, it's already too late for them to alter a decision, right?
Yeah. And I mean, all of these delays could have a real reason between them. Like suddenly, someone wins the lotto, they quit. They were they were your chief cave algorithmic engineer. So now your caves are making no progress whatsoever. Right. Who is trained up on that system? No one. Okay, what documentation do we have? He didn't keep any documentation. He was working remote, and it's on his personal computer, and we didn't know that. Hey, we'll send him a message. Can we get that documentation? That hard drive died. I don't have it anymore. Like, crap. Like those kind of weird things happen all the time. So it's not necessarily a failure of leadership. I don't know too much about that update. I know it was split up into 2 updates, and they released some stuff now, and the other half is due out in like the holiday season.
Right.
And so like last year they overpromised, and this year they're under delivering. It could entirely be that it's ready to go, but someone on the marketing side said, hey, you don't have anything going out in December. What happens if we split this release into 2 different things? And then everyone goes, yeah, it shouldn't be a big deal. But
so,
then,
man,
that comes from that is just like,
I just want to know, like, how often do you think the public messaging about delays or these kinds of decision is significantly different from like the private reasons for the decision? Do you really think that happens often?
Yeah, I do. I really do. And I have one example of this specifically. One of my old coworkers.
He's pulling up his sources.
I'm pulling this
from
up.
That deleted hard drive.
There was an article about Guild Wars 2 expansion coming out. And there's all this detail about the features, everything that's going into it. But the headline that they put out on their social media to link to this article is Guild Wars 2 expansion End of Dragons has been delayed. It is the most minor detail in the entire article. It is barely a mention. And that is the headline that media chooses to lapse on, because delays get attention. It's not about the features. It's not about supporting that community or getting more people into that. It's about the headline and the glitz and glam that comes from that. Yeah, it'll get more people to read the article and get familiar about the article. But Guild Wars 2 is, and that team and that studio is not about deceiving players to get attention. They make a quality fucking game, and they care about that game a lot. So for this outlet to do that for drama is pretty disrespectful to the team.
Gotcha. That wasn't the initial angle I thought you were going to go with it. That's cool though. Thank you for like that perspective. I was kind of thinking like, how many times do you think what studios communicate to be the reason for the delay is actually not?
Right, like Halo Infinite saying that like COVID affected their development or whatever, like that kind of thing or something like that, right?
Right.
I think that spin is still definitely a part of the industry. Marketing is marketing, whether you're talking gaming, toothpaste, cigarettes,
right,
weed, whatever. Spin is spin. If it benefits them, they'll do it.